Hello everyone, welcome to Minor Incidents covering major crimes, Season 6, Episode 7, entitled Conspiracy Theory Part 2. This episode was written by Mike Zara and directed by Anthony Hemingway. It was just so good. This episode was just so good. So we're going to do this like we usually do, where we do the crime side first and then the personal side. Crime side, case involved the continuation of the Hooters-esque place. They delve into who each of these girls was. Last episode, they found a young woman who was murdered. And we find out today how she was murdered. She was suffocated and there was a taser used on her back that wouldn't leave a mark, so they didn't know it right away that's what happened. At the crime scene, Sharon shows up and she suddenly gets a little lightheaded, gets a little woozy, and ends up falling onto the couch. And she's like, no, it's my medication. And Provenz is just looking at her like, why are you here? You're still not feeling well. Go home. I got this. Don't worry about it. Which was it was just a really nice little scene. And she's just like, no, I got it. It's fine. It's fine. It's my medicine. It's fine. He's like, call Andy. She's not gonna listen to me, just call Andy. That's what they did. I don't think he ever showed up to the site. He probably didn't even know she went to the crime scene. And she ended up getting rest and sleeping in, and she shows up to work the next day. Provenz is like, Sharon Rader slept in and the world didn't implode. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. So we found out that on the list from the lawyer, some of the names had SA written next to it. And we find out that stood for sexual assault. Not what they originally thought it meant. I don't even remember what they thought it meant. But at the first episode, I was like, why aren't they automatically being like, no, that means sexual assault? Why did they automatically just think it was something else entirely that wasn't even remotely related to it? So Wes and Sykes go to the football player's place of work. They interrogate him because they found out that he was accused of sexual assault when he was in high school. And the only reason it was never brought up was because, one, they settled out of court, the school, with the girl that was accusing. But because he was up for Heisman Trophy and stuff like that, they found out that the young woman it was a group of guys that were on the football team. She ended up committing suicide. His bodyguard came in and with his stun gun, they had to draw a weapon on him, and he's like, sit down. And he even went to push Sykes. It was I don't know. And I can't place him yet. A part of me feels like he might be telling the truth, which is weird. I just don't know how to take that guy yet. They tell him about the young girl dying, and not only him, but one of the other women that were part of this class action lawsuit immediately thought that the young woman had committed suicide and not the woman that was murdered. Thought she committed suicide and not that she was murdered. That was interesting, and they kind of went into that a little bit. And then he was like, she never told me who did it because I would go and kill him. So I don't know. I can't place him, and that's unusual. I can't place anyone in this. I still don't like the lawyer's son. He's shady. I don't like him one bit. You are not your mother's son. You are just some little boy who never grew up and only took the reins because they were given to you. On the personal front, we had some lovely Sharon and Andy moments this episode, and I was so happy, just so happy. We had one really nice one that was in the apartment, and Rusty's making dinner. He's making lasagna. He tells her to look on the table, and here he finished college early. He did it within 3 years instead of the usual 4, and he's going to be a lawyer. And she was like, oh, my son, a lawyer, and it was just so sweet. Ever so slightly comedic, which was the best part about it. It was just so good, and she's just overcome with him, and she's like, I'm so happy. I am so happy to be where I am in my life, and I have 3 children through college, and I have a perfect husband, and Andy kisses her hand. I'm like, oh. While he's making dinner, Gus keeps trying to call him. He's declining to call every time, and Sharon's like, what's going on? And Rusty tells her. Now, earlier in the episode, Rusty went and told Gus that he got him a kind of a settlement because this guy has obviously done this before to other guys that had worked for him, fired them when they wouldn't sleep with him anymore. Initially, Gus was very angry about it, and he's like, oh, I feel cheap, and Rusty's like, you're barking up the wrong tree with this one. I used to actually do that in my actual life, and that's how I survived. I kind of felt for Rusty in that moment. And then later on, Rusty's ignoring pretty much every text message, every call Gus has made to him. Gus corners him outside of work, and he's like, why are you ignoring my calls? Why are you doing? And Rusty's like, because I kind of I'm done. I did what I had to do, and I'm done. And Gus keeps implying that Rusty still loves him, and this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, this is such... at first I didn't like this relationship. I didn't like this relationship because it was just, out of the blue, and everybody was like, what? There was no inclination that these two were even together to begin with. But now it's, super toxic. Gus, you messed up, and you need to take ownership of messing up. You keep saying, oh, I know I did it, I'm so sorry. No, you're not though. You're not though. You're not sorry. And you're definitely not sorry to Rusty. Gus just doesn't understand why Rusty can't forgive him. And it's like, dude, you slept around. Like, you slept on him twice. And who's to know if you slept with other guys too? That's exactly what Rusty tells him. And she's like, I will never be able to trust you, ever. We're not even going to give this another try because I can't trust you. That was a really nice moment. And he kind of essentially washed his hands of Gus. Which, obviously, you know Gus is going to come back because he'll be back. It was just a really nice moment of Rusty being an adult. Here's why I'm not taking you back right now. Like, here's why I feel this way. You deal with it, but I've already come to terms with how I feel and what I feel. At the end, we had a great Sharon and Andy scene. Sharon going to the specialist, and she's super afraid. Andy makes a really sweet remark about that they both have broken hearts, and together they're one heart or something like that. I'm like, oh my god, you guys are so cute. There wasn't much to it. It was just them walking to this thing, and Sharon looks at him and she's like, listen, if anything happens to me, tell me you'll take care of my children. And Andy's like, oh god, don't talk like that. She's like, you need to promise me you'll take care of my kids. And he's like, yeah, of course I will. That's not even something you need to ask me. And it was such a throwaway kind of thing, and they made it such a casual thing, but like in a good way. Her thinking of her own demise. She doesn't want to accept that it's a thing that could happen, but she has to accept that it's a thing that could happen. And I think with her saying it so casually means that she knows that this might not end very well. What I like about this episode, everything. I loved everything. The case was on point. Usually when I would watch these episodes, I'd be able to the first time I would see the person, that it would be them, like, they did it. Like, I knew it. And when you watch this show, you end up, there's little tells. But I haven't been able to pick up on any tells yet. I can kind of feel who didn't do it. Still don't know if we've seen them yet. If it's anybody, it might be the lawyer's son. Other than that, I don't really know. Also, the personal sides of what was happening were fantastic. And I even enjoyed the Gus and Rusty. What did I dislike? I don't think there was any real dislikes. I always love Andrea. I always love Rusty. There was no dislikes. And I'm rating it obviously 10 out of 10 because this is like the best episode we've had this season thus far. This episode was pretty good, but like this one I feel like far surpassed it because it wasn't boring. I was completely into each second of this episode, as well as the characters and even the crime side of the story, which is usually something that I feel might lack sometimes when I'm personally wishing that there's more personal parts, and I felt like we had a great mixture of the two, that they balance each other out this time around. This was a perfect episode. It had the right amount of crime side and it had the right amount of personal side, and it was able to mix them together in a way that didn't annoy me. Like usually the Rusty and Gus parts would annoy me, or the lack of Sharon and Andy, but we had both of those things this time, and it was great, and I loved every second of it. Predictions. In the previews for next week, we saw Provenza telling Sharon, this job is killing you, and it is. She can't take any stress. And we also see her finally talking to the chief, who I love, and I don't talk about enough. I love Leah Mason. Join me next week for Major Crimes 6th season, 8th episode, entitled Conspiracy Theory Part 3. I'm really looking forward to it. My hair is so incredibly staticky and it's driving me insane. And it looks like it's dirty but it's not. But like, I had to be at work at 7:45. I got there at 7:54, and my my manager is like, it's like, so did you get those numbers mixed up? I was like, yep I did. It definitely wasn't me being lazy. There's a lot of banging going on. Like, there's just so much going on right now. I'm just gonna do this very quickly, and hopefully the thing doesn't die, because that might happen too. Also, look, it's daytime. I don't usually film in the daytime, and I usually use a fake light. Well, it's not fake, it's a real light, but like, it's not daylight. So now you get to see all of my wrinkles instead of just a couple of them. It was so good. It was so good. This episode was good.